Welcome everyone to the Finger on the Pulse Lounge, where I've got my finger on the pulse so you can too. After all the drama about a bunch of 2023 movies coming out and jump scaring everyone by secretly being musicals, I thought I'd better start a series for people with more interesting hobbies than reading Polygon and monitoring Letterboxd, in order to prepare them for what pop culture has in store over the next month or so. You know, what's coming out, who's in it, and why anyone's talking about it in the first place. So, I'm going to try and talk a tiny bit about all 82 of the major releases in each of three categories: movies, games, and TV. Hopefully, not spending too long on any of them, but also giving you enough context so that next time the latest video game is brought up around the water cooler, you won't be left out. Starting with movies, and it's a very exciting month for me, particularly as it starts with Argylle. In this action comedy, Bryce Dallas Howard plays a spy novelist whose fictional stories turn out to be bizarrely accurate, which gets her whisked away on her own espionage adventure. It's directed and produced by Matthew Vaughn, who has written and directed a long string of great action comedies and adventure films, including X-Men Days of Future Past, Stardust, and Kick-Ass, all of which I'd recommend if you missed them. Not everything he touches turns to gold, but a spy movie from the director of Kingsman is really all I needed to hear, and it was instantly one of my most anticipated of the year. It also has a bizarrely good cast, with some all-time Hollywood icons like Samuel L. Jackson and Catherine O'Hara, and a couple who are fresh off some recent hits, such as John Cena in Fast X and Dua Lipa in Barbie. Argylle comes out February 2nd in the USA and February 1st in Australia and New Zealand. May December, a drama film from Todd Haynes, was YouTuber Carsten Runquist's #1 movie of 2023, which I'm sure to some people is the highest recommendation a film can get. For the rest of us, it stars Natalie Portman as an actress who is prepping to play a controversial woman, played by Julianne Moore, whose relationship to her husband began when he was 13. It was just nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the Oscars and had nominations out the wazoo at the Golden Globes, including controversially for Best Comedy or Musical. Is it a comedy? The internet sure can't decide. May December comes out on the 1st of February in Australia and the 15th of February in New Zealand, and if you're in the US, you can stream it right now on Netflix. Next is The Tiger's Apprentice on Paramount Plus, which is a fantasy film based on a novel heavily inspired by Chinese mythology. It stars Lucy Liu, Sandra Oh, and Michelle Yeoh, which is all the Asian actresses over 50 that I could name with a gun to my head. If you've got kids, Paramount Plus, and you liked the Transformers film scores, this might just be the family film for you. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention? It's scored by the Transformers guy. Streaming February 2nd in the US. I couldn't find anything about an Australian release, but I think it's safe to say it'll be on Paramount Plus on February 2nd or 3rd. On February 8th, an Australian film, the sequel to Eric Banner's The Dry from 2020, Force of Nature The Dry 2. As with all Australian dramas ever, it seems to be about murder, or at least a missing person. No information about a US release, but it took the first one 4 months to reach the USA, so don't hold your breath. Has the term horror rom-com been coined yet? Horror romantic comedy? Because Lisa Frankenstein looks like exactly that. A teenage goth girl reanimates a handsome Victorian-era corpse starring Catherine Newton, Cole Sprouse, and Carla Gugino. That is to say, Ant-Man's daughter from Quantumania, Jughead from Riverdale, and the mum from Spy Kids. I've actually never heard of this one before, but it's the directorial debut of Robin Williams' daughter Zelda, so it feels like a make or break for her. Coming February 9th in the USA, although the cinema websites and IMDb are keeping mum about any Australian or New Zealand release dates, so keep an eye out. Here's one that's a real head scratcher for me. Dakota Johnson stars as Madam Web, who was originally a clairvoyant old lady on life support, but will now look like Dakota Johnson. There's also 3 other spider-powered women in this movie, none of whom are the original Spider-Woman and none of whom are fan favourites, and they'll be fighting Ezekiel, who in the comics was a cosmic mentor type figure to Spider-Man, particularly whenever there was freaky stuff going down involving the Spider-Verse. Look, I'm not trying to be Mr. Negative about this movie, but I have questions. Why is Sony making movies about characters this obscure when they've got access to so many of Spider-Man's fantastic rogues gallery? Is there any possibility it could turn out to be good? Who will go see this? Because as a lifelong Spider-Man fan myself, this movie contains none of the things I like about Spider-Man movies, so I don't feel any urge to go see it. But if you do, it comes out on February 14th in the US and New Zealand, and February 15th here in Australia. It seems like music biopics get a bad rap lately, but this one might be the one to escape the people's scorn. It's directed by Reynaldo Marcus Green, who has 2 previous biographical films under his belt, including King Richard, which was nominated for Best Picture and scored Will Smith a win for Best Actor, although if you forgot about that bit, that's his own fault. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot. Anyway, if Best Picture nominated director within the same genre isn't grabbing your attention, perhaps the main cast will, since they're having one hell of a good decade. Lashana Lynch went from literally being 007 to Matilda's teacher Miss Honey to the mother of a superhero in last year's The Marvels. Meanwhile, Kingsley Ben-Adir dominated our screens last year as the main villain of Secret Invasion, going on to appear as a Ken in Barbie. And Michael Gandolfini was literally Tony Soprano in The Many Saints of Newark. Bob Marley One Love will be released in the USA, Australia, and New Zealand on February 14th. The Book of Clarence has already been released in the US, and the mainstream websites are all giving it somewhere between 60 and 80%, or 3 to 4 stars out of 5. It's a dramedy set during the life of Jesus, directed by Seal's brother, and produced by Jay-Z. Starring like every black actor working in Hollywood today, and also Benedict Cumberbatch. Hold on, who was the researcher for this one? I'm being pranked, surely. I gotta check Wikipedia. Jesus arrives, stops the stone's flight in midair? Right, I'm just gonna go with this. If the Book of Clarence is a real movie, it comes out on the 22nd of February in Australia and New Zealand, and I think I'll definitely have to be there for that one. The Rooster, not to be confused with a video on this channel, is an Australian murder mystery drama starring Hugo Weaving as a crazy old hermit. It seems creepy and off-kilter, and it's the director's first movie behind the camera, so it could be a great time. The Rooster comes out in Australia and New Zealand on February 22nd, with no dates confirmed for the US at this stage. In Baghead, a young woman inherits a rundown pub and discovers a dark secret within its basement, a shape-shifting creature that can channel the dead and let you speak to loved ones. I don't watch much supernatural horror, but I can't help but compare it to 2022's Smile, since it also seems to be a novel concept based on a short film and directed by the creator of that short film. Baghead releases on the 22nd of February here and in New Zealand, and the 8th of February in the USA. It's surprising how little buzz I've heard about Drive Away Dolls, considering that it's the latest film from Ethan Coen. Yes, that Coen brother. And both Pedro Pascal and Matt Damon are in it. I mean, sure, they're in everything, but I didn't realize that meant their appearances were so unbuzzworthy. Anyway, Margaret Qualley, who was in last year's Poor Things, is a free spirit bemoaning yet another breakup, and Geraldine Viswanathan from Blockers is her friend who needs to loosen up. Time for a road trip. Oh no, what's that? A group of inept criminals? Hilarity ensues. This is the first movie Ethan has directed without Joel, other than a documentary in 2022, so consider me interested. Drive Away Dolls releases in the US on February 23rd, and Australia and New Zealand on the 22nd. I was already so excited for this one, but while I was prepping this video, it got nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, so my excitement has only grown. The Zone of Interest is about the home life of the Commandant of Auschwitz, who lives basically next door I've heard that the horrors of the concentration camp are never shown in the movie, but merely alluded to through details like gunfire in the background or ash on the ground in the backyard, and I think that's fascinating. Plus, talk about a poster that tells a story. This poster should win awards. The Zone of Interest is a film from A24, who have rapidly gained a reputation for high class acquisitions of high quality indie films. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a member of the A24 cult that eagerly awaits any film they produce, but I do concede that they've had some excellent movies. The Zone of Interest is already out in the US, but comes out here on the 22nd of February. If you're counting, that's 5 movies on the 22nd. Earlier in the video, I talked about how a Matthew Vaughn spy movie is all I needed to hear to get me into the cinema. Well, as far as director genre combos go, it doesn't get much better than David Leitch action comedy. If all David Leitch had directed was Deadpool 2 and Bullet Train, that would still be all it takes. But he also co-directed the first John Wick, directed Hobbs and Shaw, which was a great Fast and Furious movie, and was a producer on my favourite film of all time, Nobody. I love you, Nobody. It also has Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson all coming off some of the best performances of their careers with Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Bullet Train, respectively. As if I needed more reasons to go. February 29th can't come soon enough for Australia and New Zealand, but sorry USA, you're gonna have to wait till May 3rd. I really wasn't sure if I should even mention this one, but it was produced in Brisbane where I live, so I felt obligated. This is a sequel to a film that I'm now learning starred Frank Woodley, like my favourite comedian. An evil tech genius threatens to turn the city into a metaverse simulation, leaving the combat wombat to save the day. Bless. This releases in Australia on the 29th of February, taking advantage of leap year, in New Zealand on the 7th of March, and who knows, maybe even the USA one day. On to games now, and it's worth noting that the 2nd of February will see the release of the Apple Vision Pro, which could be the future of AR and VR, or just the future of sitting on your couch looking like a tit. While I went through the list of all 65 games that release in February, I realized that I didn't have a great strategy for deciding which ones were worth talking about. So, first I separated out the ones that only have release dates in Japan, which are on your screen now. Then I thought I'd separate the games getting a Western release that were previously regional exclusives, which you can see now. A decent number of the games that were left were from Japan, and Japanese games really aren't my area of expertise, so I'll let someone else talk about them. So I took out the rest of those, which you can see now. Sorry, Persona fans. Additionally, here's all the games that are already out but getting released on another platform. Great, now we're down to 38, let's go through them as fast as possible. The developers of the incredible Arkham trilogy are putting out their first new game in 8 years, and it's a live service. Yep. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is an action shooter for single players or up to 4 players in co-op. The earlier reviews are not kind, so I suppose we're just gonna have to find out how bad it is come February 2nd. Foam Stars is the new 4v4 online party shooter from Square Enix for PS4 and PS5 that lets you shape the terrain with gallons of foam. This looks like a visual abomination, so if you're really into Fortnite, take a break from playing it to check out Foam Stars on February 6th. I'm not sorry, Fortnite players, you know your game looks bad. Clem is a narrative-driven escape room game with horror elements, calling itself a Puzzlevania. Hand-drawn elements and unique puzzles abound, coming 6th of February. The Inquisitor asks, what if Jesus didn't die on the cross, but was instead consumed with rage and unleashed vengeance on the non-believers? A perfectly normal line of thinking, I'm sure. As an Inquisitor brutally enforcing the faith, you are investigating, interrogating, and fighting sinners. You can also dive into the unworld and it looks like you can see the innermost secrets of their souls, but at a cost. What a strange concept. Can't wait to hear what people think come February 8th. Helldivers 2 is a third-person, squad-based shooter from the developers of Magicka. Big guns, even bigger sci-fi monsters, big explosions. What more do you want? Coming February 8th. Ultros is a psychedelic Metroidvania that looks like something Justin Roiland would create if he really applied himself to making a serious game with deep lore. The soundtrack and art style are from a guy who was on the Hotline Miami soundtrack, and visually, this game is a spectacle. It comes out February 13th. I'm a bit confused about this one, maybe because I've got nothing to compare it to, but it does look a little bit like the Sonic Frontiers demo, which I played for about an hour. Islands of Insight is a shared world game, which means you can see other randoms wandering about, where you go about exploring and solving puzzles to unlock new abilities. And there's like 10,000 puzzles, but only 24 types of puzzle, which feels like a bad ratio. I feel like you'd want more puzzle types and less puzzles, right? Anyway, I'm extremely excited to see the reviews when it comes out on the 14th. Banishers Ghosts of New Eden is a story-driven action RPG from the brilliant Don't Nod Entertainment. Heavy emphasis on the supernatural, cool powers, slightly more horror than your Baldur's Gates and Skyrims. It actually looks quite cool. I'm keen to find out more when it comes out February 14th. If you're familiar with the Zelda CDI games, or at least recognize this sleep paralysis demon, you know exactly what developer CDI Software, oh I get it, is going for. Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore, is trying to capture the nostalgia of those games, even bringing back the voice actors for Zelda and Link. So Zelda fans, I guess this one's for you, coming February 14th. You know the Civilization Grand Strategy games? Yes? Great. This is that, but in hell. It's a reimagining of a game from 2009 which was received well but didn't get much attention, so hopefully the gorgeous art style of this one will draw some new attention come February 15th. Those original Tomb Raider games in the 90s are getting a fresh coat of paint on February 14th, although they've gone for, and I quote, "We want the games to look the way they did in your mind." So this isn't your typical remaster. The sentiment of some playtesters didn't even know they were playing with the modern art toggled on isn't my cup of tea, but at least they're fixing the controls and preserving history, so good on them. Yes, this is our fourth nostalgia title in a row, and our third remake in a row. This one is a remake of the 2004 puzzle platformer of the same name. Look, I don't need to tell you what's going on here. You already know if you like 2D Mario games or not, so you already know if you're gonna buy it. You just need me to tell you that it comes out on February the 16th. I can't find how to pronounce this game, but your ship crashes in a dark town that looks like any other, except the night never ends, and the people act like that's normal. This is a pixel art puzzle adventure side scroller that looks like it probably has a great story and will probably try and make you cry. February 16th. Oh god. Okay. Do you remember Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag from 2013? Well, after that game did really well, Ubisoft started making a pirate-based multiplayer game without assassins in it, which they announced in 2017, due to come out the following year. Since then, this game has been delayed 6 times, changing logos, adding a single-player campaign, changing it from MMO to just multiplayer, and changing themes from historical piracy to now announcing there will be no historical or mythological elements at launch. So, if Skull and Bones comes out on the 16th of February, my housemate owes me money for one, and I hope you enjoy exploring their stupidly large map, which is 7 times bigger than that of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Maybe this will scratch your BG3 itch. Coming 20th of February, The Thaumaturge is an isometric, story-driven RPG set in 20th century Warsaw, with turn-based combat and a strong emphasis on the supernatural. The Scout games were a trilogy of narrative puzzle adventure platformers about a mouse trying to save the day from sea rats, which have been slightly revamped and brought together in one bundle at last. They're based on the Redwall books and boast a unique real-time scent mechanic, coming 20th of February. Coming out on the same day is this cute cooking game set in the same universe. It has its own story to uncover, so perhaps this is the perfect companion to the Scout anthology. Madison VR is a psychological survival horror game where you need to take pictures and interact with objects in the environment to solve the mystery, coming 20th of February. Myth of Empires is a multiplayer war sandbox game where you can build your own empire, including things like base defenses. It sounds pretty cool, but if you're going to pick it up on the 21st of February, do your research first because it sounds like the developers turn a blind eye to Chinese players using exploits, but not anyone else, so it's virtually unplayable for Westerners. I wish I had more time to unpack this fascinating game with all this drama surrounding it, including apparently a court case, but there's so many games, man. I gotta keep going. Alright, I'm really out of my depth here, knowing basically nothing about League of Legends. But the long and short of it is, this is a cute isometric crafting RPG that has knitting magic and something to do with League of Legends. Last Epoch is a hack and slash action RPG with all the usual fixtures of runes and forges and skill trees and dungeon crawling and spiders and void monsters, but I think the draw here is that it's all really refined with over 100 skill trees and 15 classes, so you can really play your own way. Oops, I've talked myself into buying something I wasn't going to buy. Last Epoch has been in early access for like 5 years now, so expect a premium product on February 21st. I'm sure the name Slave Zero means something to someone, as a biopunk action game from 1999. This is a 2.5D beat 'em up hack and slash spectacle fighter, whatever that means, set in the same universe that comes out on February 22nd. Terminator Dark Fate Defiance. Let's see. RTS, 3 factions, mix and match your army composition. Okay, cool. It's Terminator StarCraft, February 22nd. Annapurna Interactive are really building a brand around atmospheric, story-rich experiences full of emotion and stylized visuals. And critically acclaimed games like Journey and Outer Wilds and last year's Cocoon all help to make it a prestige brand. Unfortunately, it's a brand I'm rarely in the correct mood for. They're kind of like the Studio Ghibli of gaming because everyone constantly recommends them to the point of irritation, but I'm never quite in the right headspace at the right time. Open Roads is their latest one, and it's a cinematic exploration investigation game that looks like it would be fantastic if I ever actually got around to playing it. If you aren't already on board the prestige indie drama train, perhaps this could be where you board the train on February 22nd. Of course, there is one story-rich investigative indie car-based game I'm looking forward to on February 22nd, but for me, it's Pacific Drive. It seems like a horror game and a survival game, but not a survival horror, if that makes sense. You're investigating supernatural occurrences, but your car is going to take a beating, so you have to repair, reinforce, and upgrade it with things you find around the place. Now that's way more my speed. Nightingale is a PvE open-world survival crafting game where it seems that the base building is extremely elaborate. If you've played Conan Exiles, I'm getting the vibe that this is that but with magical portals. Looks pretty though, and coming February 22nd. Garden Life, a cozy simulator, is a cozy gardening and management game that lets you deep dive into botany. Coming 22nd of February. We need a name for political dystopian work simulators where you uncover the big evil government or corporation secrets while also balancing moral choices and paying your rent. And not a lame name like Papers Like or Orwell type. Anyway, I couldn't find what makes this one stand out from the others, so I suppose if you haven't played any of these, start with Orwell, and if you have, here's another one coming out February 23rd. Sons of the Forest came into early access last February, but it looks like they're already ready to go. I haven't played this one, but it's apparently just more of the same as The Forest, but better, so I feel pretty confident recommending this. It's a survival game in the most traditional sense of the word, with crafting, base building, exploration, and a story and optional co op, but it's a super refined take on the genre, and one where you can make effigies out of dead cannibals, so what more could you want? Are the monsters horrifying? Yes. But if you can get past that and embrace a little bit of fear, the base building with friends is so enormously fun that you should definitely consider it come 24th of February. Promenade is a 2D platformer that is heavily inspired by 3D platformers and therefore has a bunch of cool movement puzzles and mechanics. Buy it for your kids on the 24th of February. Wrath, Eon of Ruin. The creators of Duke Nukem 3D, Prey, and Max Payne present a hardcore FPS powered by the same engine Quake 1 was built on. Never has Steam's retro tag felt more appropriate. This basically comes with a built-in fan base, which is people nostalgic for games like this, so if you're one of them, put the 27th of February in your diary. Pixel Cross Story of Seasons is a nonogram game, 27th of February. This is one of those indie darlings from 2013 that people won't leave you alone about until you've played it, so on February 28th, you'd probably better just play it so they'll leave you alone. Star Wars Dark Forces came out in 1995, before even the prequels, and was apparently the first Star Wars FPS. This remake is another one trying to look like the original. I don't know why, but it comes out on the 28th of February if you're into it. Minami Lane is a cozy, casual management sim where you place a bunch of businesses on a street and manage those businesses. Remember when Anton Ego took a bite of ratatouille and instantly flashed back to his childhood? The screenshots of this instantly took me back to that Flash game, Lemonade World, and it also just looks really refined as management games go, so I'm sold. Releasing on the 28th of February. If you're new to Final Fantasy, listen up. In 1997, there was Final Fantasy VII and it was one game. Then, between 2004 and 2014, there were a whole bunch of games set in the world of Final Fantasy VII, since each main entry in Final Fantasy is its own world and its own story. Then, in 2020, Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out, which is actually the first game in a trilogy of games which are collectively a remake of Final Fantasy VII. So, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is part 2. And if you're not into Final Fantasy, this is probably the wrong place to start. I don't know much about these games, but I've been told you should start with 6, 7 Remake, 10, 14, or 15. Don't start with part 2 of a trilogy, which comes out on the 29th of February. Welcome to Paradise is an isometric zombie survival crafting game. Base building, check. Fun weapons, check. 29th of February, check. The Political Machine 2024 doesn't have a release date, interestingly. It's a political strategy game in which you determine your political platform, engage in debates, and manage your campaign budget. Also, it looks like you can play as creepy Uncle Joe, so that could be fun. And that brings us to the end of video games and to the start of TV. Now, since there's a million police procedurals that get a million new seasons a year, I've decided to focus on new shows. But I'll also mention any subsequent seasons of the most popular shows on TV, or anything I'm watching. Also, I won't talk about reality shows, which includes docu-series, cooking shows, and game shows, unless I think they're notable enough to mention. It's just because there's so many of them. A Bloody Lucky Day is a South Korean show about a taxi driver who becomes entangled with a customer who turns out to be a serial killer. Expect a bloody, suspense-filled series coming to Paramount Plus on February 1st. If you follow Doctor Who, you know that Russell T Davies is on top of the world right now, having successfully revived the show twice and with the newest season coming in May. Three Little Birds was written by Sir Lenny Henry in collaboration with RTD and is a historical drama series following three women catching a steamboat from Jamaica to the UK. It'll be on ITV there and BritBox here. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is a spy comedy series based on the 2005 Brangelina film of the same name, although not quite with the same premise. It's co-created by Donald Glover, who also stars as Mr. Smith, which is a great start, and the rest of the cast is really impressive as well. It's coming to Amazon Prime on February 2nd. This isn't really a TV show, but it came up when I was looking at TV shows, so it's staying in this section. Pixar Spark Shorts is a program that gives Pixar employees 6 months to develop animated short films, so you get imaginative ideas from storytellers who may have never had the chance to tell their stories before. The newest one, Self, is the first ever stop motion animation from Pixar and follows a wooden puppet who makes a wish upon a star. This will be on Disney Plus from February 2nd. I really wanted to talk about Curb Your Enthusiasm because this show has been going for 24 years now, and season 12 is its final season. So it's an incredibly bittersweet eagerness that I have for the new season, as this minimally scripted sitcom about Larry David, creator of Seinfeld, is truly unique in the TV landscape, and I'll be sad to see it go. It starts on February 4th. Now, I figured if we're here to ensure we've all got our fingers on the pulse, I should probably let you know that the Grammys are on the 4th of February in the USA. So that's all that people are going to be talking about for a few days. It'll be on Paramount, or if you're in the USA, you can also watch it on CBS. This Portuguese language show is hard to find information about, including an English poster, but Lose the Light of the Heart follows an adopted girl raised by an indigenous family who attends boarding school and might be friends with a firefly. She's off on a journey in search of her origins on February 7th on Netflix. Paramount Plus's Halo Season 1 was mixed with some fans confused about the timeline, and others just pissed that Master Chief was showing his goofy face. But it certainly looked great, and fans are keen to see more Cortana and maybe even a Halo ring in Season 2, coming out February 8th. Now this might actually be the first Valentine's Day content this year, other than Lisa Frankenstein, and it's not even coming out on Valentine's Day, opting for February 8th instead. One Day is a British Netflix limited series about two lovers who reunite on the same day every year. Now, personally, I'd rather watch the Anne Hathaway 2011 movie before committing to a 14-episode series. A Killer Paradox is a K-drama about an ordinary young man who accidentally does some murder and finds himself stuck in an endless cat and mouse chase with a shrewd detective. On Netflix from February 9th. I couldn't think of a better way to summarize Tracker, so I'm just going to read you the synopsis and let you judge for yourself. Lone wolf survivalist Cultus Shaw roams the country as a reward seeker, using his expert tracking skills to help private citizens and law enforcement solve all manner of mysteries, while contending with his own fractured family. This is a CBS show, so expect it to be on Paramount Plus straight away on February 9th. Every synopsis I've read for Rock, Paper, Scissors is just like, follow their hijinks and wacky adventures and nonsense. But it is a Nicktoon, so that tracks. It'll be out on February 12th. Nickelodeon's owned by Paramount, so that's where I'd expect to see it pop up. Oh god, now I'm gonna talk about The Walking Dead, my favourite. Daryl Dixon was a character in the main show, and now he's got his own show. It's a sequel series set in France, and he's trying to find his way back home. It's AMC, so that means AMC Plus for the USA and Stan for Australia from February 13th. And New Zealand, I guess you've got TVNZ Plus, so it's on there. The new look sounds to me like Netflix's The Crown, but for the fashion world, which sounds great. And I love Ben Mendelsohn, and the fact that he's playing Christian Dior as he dethrones Coco Chanel just makes this sound even better. And then there's Maisie Williams and John Malkovich as well. This is an Apple TV Plus original coming on the 14th of February. This Netflix original, House of Ninjas, is a gritty drama about ninjas in modern day Japan. What are you waiting for? Oh, that's right, February 15th. Far North is a Sundance Now original. That's a new one to me. It'll be on AMC Plus in America and Paramount Plus and Prime Video here too, but I just never expected to hear Sundance Now original. It's a 6-part comedy drama crime caper starring Tamura Morrison, that is to say, Boba Fett. It'll probably be quite funny, so keep an ear out starting February 15th. Prepare for 5 episodes of satirical tales from Netflix and Vince Staples called The Vince Staples Show. It looks bizarre. February 15th. Ready Set Love is a Thai drama about a world where women significantly outnumber men and compete in government-sponsored game shows to find love. Only Netflix would, and only on February 15th. Okay, I draw the line at talking about this show. Look at this poster. You already know what you need to know. What I want to know is, what is Great American Family? Okay, it's a conservative media company that merged with the extremely Christian-oriented PureFlix, and now it has the worst name for a streaming service, Great American PureFlix. That's not a joke. Wow. Anyway, now you know where to see it in America, and there's no way in hell this thing's gonna reach Australia or New Zealand, but for the conservative Americans still watching, it's coming February 18th. Constellation is a psychological thriller coming on February 21st to Apple TV+. To be honest, this poster and the fact that it's Apple TV Plus is probably enough information to convince me to watch it, but if you're still not convinced, it's also got Jonathan Banks in it. Star Wars The Bad Batch is coming to an end, with the 3-episode premiere of Season 3 coming to Disney Plus on February 21st. This series has spent a lot of time trying to find its footing, sometimes being anthological like Clone Wars, and sometimes being longer form like Rebels. Hopefully, this series gives them a nice conclusion and a compelling story about Echo. Netflix is at it again with their anime adaptations, and Avatar The Last Airbender is probably the highest profile one since Cowboy Bebop, especially as it's not the first time this has been attempted. It looks alright though, but it definitely looks like the M. Night Shyamalan movie, which was criticized for its look. So we'll have to wait and see on February 22nd. Kieran Culkin, Natasha Lyonne, Maya Rudolph, and Sam Smith are all joining the cast of this brand new Amazon Prime cartoon that is described as Scrubs in Space. Poacher is an Indian dramatization of events that unfolded in the forests of Kerala and in Delhi. It's about the investigation into the largest ivory poaching ring in Indian history. February 23rd. February 25th, 12 days after Daryl Dixon premieres, on the same streaming services as before, that is to say, AMC Plus, Stan, and TVNZ Plus, The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live. This one seems to be a direct sequel to the original show, including the return of Rick Grimes and Michonne. I can't believe that show has 6 spin-offs and 2 of them are starting in February. Okay, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about game shows or reality shows, but this is too funny. It's like something off 30 Rock. It literally is like a show that they would have had as a gag in the background in 30 Rock. Deal or No Deal Island. Oh, the players go to the Bankers Island where over 100 cases are hidden with millions of dollars split between them. And they have to collect them all, ready, so they can play Deal or No Deal. I suppose it makes sense that game shows are migrating to islands now. The traditional game show is nowhere near as exciting as your island contest shows. Plus, the island settings means you can put the contestants in bikinis and get that viewership. Anyway, this late-stage capitalist abomination is coming February 26th to NBC and then Peacock, and I assume for Australians it'll be hoovered up by the 7 Network later in the year. I like Hiroyuki Sanada, so I really hope he doesn't die immediately in this historical drama based on the 1975 novel of the same name, Shogun. Sanada's character, Lord Yoshi Toranaga, finds a mysterious European ship marooned in a fishing village and discovers secrets that could tip the scales of power and devastate his enemies. This is an FX show, which means Hulu in the US and Disney Plus here in New Zealand, February 27th. Iwaju is a Disney Plus original animated coming-of-age series set in a futuristic Lagos, Nigeria. The name loosely translates to future, so expect the futuristic part to be a focus, and expect themes of class, innocence, and challenging the status quo, starting February 28th. Bet Plus is Tyler Perry's streaming service focused on black content from black creators. So already I'm out of my depth and feeling like the wrong person to talk about this show, but we'll give it a red hot crack. This is a drama about a family that also happens to take place against the larger backdrop of two of Atlanta's biggest cultural events of the 90s. It'll probably come to Paramount Plus eventually, as Paramount owns Bet, but in the USA it'll be on Bet Plus from February 29th. And finally, a good old-fashioned CBS police drama. This time the gimmick is she's an autistic attorney. Interesting. I think I preferred when the detective was just a fake psychic medium. You can catch this one on CBS or Paramount Plus from February 29th. And that concludes our peek at the media of February 2024. Thanks for joining me, and let me know what you're most keen to watch or play. Goodbye!